participating in the project. So before we get into today's discussion, I'm going to invite the chairman of the GM Foundation, Mr. Paris Leawayi, to bring remarks.
Our host, Dahlia,
Family member, Most Honorable Earl Jarrett, Deputy Chairman of the Jamaican National Group. Our guest speaker, was speaking for the last time, and he has to be somebody special who brings his mother with him, because that shows a kind of characteristic that is missing sometimes. Mrs. Claudine Allen, not with us, but the GM of GM Foundation. The young photographers, are they listed on? Are they with us? Good, good. Our honorable judges, and our chief judge, and our experienced ones. Members and staff of the GN Foundation, GN Groups, and welcome all. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It really is my pleasure to be here this afternoon to share in this event. A heart-to-heart chat with international photojournalist Ruddy Roye and our budding young photographers. Those are the stars of the show today, even though they're not present here. It is a special thing that we're doing here today, where we call upon the best and the brightest of our young people to capture the best and the brightest activities to enshrine them for posterity. From the lenses of your eyes, young people, to the lenses of your cameras. From perspectives all your own, you will harvest scenes of life and living in a landmark year in our history, preserving these for future landmark years, both for the country and for yourselves. Perspectives are very important. And there are almost 3 million different perspectives in Jamaica. Understand? Each unique and shared at the same time. 3 million different realities and stories. And each frame you capture is a moment of these realities seen from your reality. Whether it's seen from serenity or bustling activities, of urban cityscapes or Jamaica's vast scenic and natural beauty, or for thriving sports and music economics, or of the industry and commerce. There's so much to tell, and practically no words. Photography as a medium is one of the rare, very rare disciplines that truly merges the arts and sciences, where blunt instruments of technology are applied to the most sublime of things. Think about this. Every day, there's a sunset. And at every moment, someone is smiling, even behind the mask. Yet somehow, the right photographer manages to turn these routine events into something special. And that sunset, that smile, becomes much more than routine. This initiative, Dahlia, is a love letter. A love letter to the future from the present, in a time capsule, not to be hidden away, but to be openly shared with everyone else. Ruddy Roye, who has more than 20 years of experience in photojournalism, is indeed a fitting person, and we're very lucky to have him with us, to have this heart-to-heart discussion with you on how photography can be used as a tool for advocacy, given his outstanding work in this field. For many years, photography has been used as a tool of advocacy. It has become one of the strongest and most powerful media due to the visual messages it can convey, as well as the audience that it can reach. Through photography, we have witnessed protests, we want justice, rallies, acts of kindness, history at its best and its worst. Today, photography remains, and I would argue, has become an even more important tool for empowerment for people around the world and their causes. We see their advocacy every day on social media. Today, people have ready-made camera built into their phones, and that can be used to capture important moments in our history. But there's a danger there, because untrained and unfocused, they can also do great damage. The JN Foundation understands the power of photography, which is what led us to launch the Resolution Project more than a decade ago, championed by our visionary leader of the JN Group, Earl Jarrett, who is an avid photographer himself in his own right. I'm sorry that he's not here with us in person. To give young people a vehicle for channeling their energies and to capture their voices. So many have so much to say about their communities and about the issues around them, but without the tools or skills to support the expressions of those thoughts and feelings. The Resolution Project was able to give a voice to these young people who became advocates. The project was a success, as some of those students' photos were mounted in the airports for years. They also went on exhibition in London and the United States, and some took up photography as a profession. So today, we are proud to continue to work with this, our latest photo advocacy competition. We hope that you will listen to Mr. Roye, that you will learn how you can be advocates in your respective communities. Enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roye. So I want to tell a little bit about our guest before we get into the conversation. Mr. Roye has more than 20 years of experience and is inspired by the raw and gritty lives of grassroots people, especially those in Jamaica. Ruddy strives to tell the stories of their victories and ills by bringing their voices to social media and the matte fiber paper. Ordinarily, people would say he has worked with these magazines, but I'll say these magazines have been fortunate to work with Ruddy. And they are the National Geographic, the New York Times, Time Magazine, Vogue, Jet, Ebony, ESPN, and Essence. Jamaica people would say Ruddy Nanama. He honed his skill as a photojournalist by working as an Associated Press stringer in New York, and he's also known for his documentation of the dancehall scene. He's an exemplary advocate whose master skills in photography is awe-inspiring. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into our fireside chat now, the Power of Advocacy. I want to welcome those folks who are joining us online via Zoom a little bit later on. In our question and answer, they'll be able to ask Ruddy anything they want to ask him. He's here. Ruddy, good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Good afternoon.
So I want to start from the beginning, before I even get into the photography. What was life like growing up in Jamaica? Because I feel that that's a part of what inspires you now.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming here today. It's a lot easier to talk to real faces rather than the screen. And I also want to thank the students or the participants that are online. I really appreciate this opportunity to, as I was explaining to, I think it was the CEO, I've always looked for a door to come back here. I've always wanted to find where I would fit in. So this is like the most fitting expression of what I want to do with the rest of my life. Growing up in Jamaica was easy because of the woman in the back there.
Miss Dorcas.
Yes. We struggled, but she gave me art. She gave me speech and drama. She gave me music. And I think, for lack of a better word, it was an escape. but she also gave me the ability to use these disciplines to create an identity for myself, which is something that I have used in America to do the work that I do. There's no way that I could have done photographing poor people in the South without Claude McKay. Because when I actually put the images up, there's a poem by Claude McKay. And I don't use, one of the first books I bought in America was I Wander as I Wander by Langston Hughes. And I think it was my way of immersing myself in the African American culture in order to understand it. But I have always punctuated my images with the words of my people. Whether it's Paul Bogle, Nani, I found myself using Norman Manley recently, Garvey for sure. I've always carried this because of my mom. Growing up in Jamaica, I won't digress, but I was asked the same question by a moderator at National Geographic. And they said, how do you identify yourself? And I said, you know what? Lately, I've been listening to a lot of reggae music, and I'm starting to feel like I'm actually a reggae artist using the camera as my voice. And they said, what do you mean? I said, when I photograph a homeless person, I hear Mighty Diamonds. I need a roof. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I carry my Jamaican identity to use to punctuate the work that I do in America.
How do you get into photography, Ruddy? Because I know you played the trombone.
Yes.
Yes. And then the writing which comes out, along with what you do. So how you start taking pictures? How did that evolve?
No, the famous story. No?
Yes.
The long and short of the story was immigration told me to go home. I always thought I was going to be a teacher. I was like, I went to college, I had 30 credits left, and I got a letter from immigration saying that I was out of status. That I had to return to Jamaica, come back up to the embassy to get more battery so that I could continue. Yes. I remember when I came here with a paper from my college saying that I had a scholarship, I was on a full scholarship. The woman at immigration then said, "Then I'll send me back, sir." And so I tried to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I remember there was a parent at Goucher where I went to college who said, "It's such a," she said something like, "It was such a pity that you were going to leave without the last 30 credits." And I remember saying to her, if I go back to Jamaica and waste my time, I would have wasted this time. And so I came here with a camera, didn't know how to use it. But before I left, I was working for the Gleaner. Yes, I was at the Gleaner for 3 years. And when I came here, Charmaine Clark, who was a friend of mine from Montego Bay Community College, she was at the Observer. And so when I came back, I really didn't feel like doing anything. My mom can tell you that I was in my house for like a year, didn't do anything. And Charmaine gave me an assignment. She told me that I needed to walk. She told me that I needed to do a story in Anchovy on the railroad line that they think that we were going to bring back in commission. And I went and did the story, photographed the people that were there, came back and I said, why don't I walk from the Kingston as a way of teaching myself how to take pictures. For me, I was still in the mind of being in college. It wasn't just about going to go take some pictures, it was about how do I learn how to use this tool. And so at the time, I think there was only Amateur magazine that I could get at Fontana. And anywhere, there was this guy in Montego Bay who was an accomplished photographer. I said, why don't I assist you? And that's what I did. I walked 121 miles in 21 days.
From Montego Bay?
From Montego Bay to Kingston. The idea was stolen. One day I come down here and I see some pictures at the airport. The same pictures that when they went there take. But it was a lesson. I learned that I have to guard the things that are important to me closer. But those same images were the ones when I was able to go back to the States, I brought to the Associated Press. And the first thing the woman looked at me and she said, and it might come off as an insult, but it wasn't. I don't think that she used it as an insult. She said if Jamaican photographers, I actually took it as a challenge. If Jamaican photographers could photograph news the way they photograph cricket, we would be the best photographers in the world.
Wow.
She said our cricket photography images were the best she has ever seen in the world. And if we could only photograph news the way we photograph, and I was just like, you know, I'm going to photograph news the way we photograph cricket.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
It's a passion, you know.
Yeah.
She saw the passion coming through the cricket. That's an interesting observation.
But what she was looking at was my railroad.
Yes. But you know, it's a story of challenge, but you know what, maybe had it gone another way, it wouldn't have pushed you to go and do other things.
No, I
and
mean,
to be where you are now.
Actually, before I got here, my mom gave me a key. Before I left for the States, my mom gave me a key. It was a key to the front door.
Of the house?
Yes. And she said, if anything happened to you, come in. Don't do like everybody else and run off. Sure.
Yes.
Sure. She said, come home. And I remember when I was fighting this thing in court, the judge said, what are you going to do? And I remember in court, I took out my key and I said, I'm going to go home. And he thought I was being arrogant. But it wasn't. It was, you know, when you have people behind you, like there is no fear. Like you move fearlessly in the world. And I said, I'm going to go home. So much so that he did not demand my paperwork or my passport. He said, I'm going to give you until July to get your things in order. Go home when you're ready. Yeah, and I remember that strength came from, I did a job for Julia Roberts, his manager. And he looked at me one day and he said, you look troubled. And he said, what's bothering you? And I told him about my whole case and I had 30 credits left to finish college and I just wanted to finish college. And he said, the thing about the creator is you push a door and it's not opening. Maybe it's not supposed to be open. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this man was talking to my life. Like this is all I've ever wanted. He said, go home. Just go home. And I came home, I walked 121 miles, found photography through the internet, through the magazines, and it has taken me all over the world.
Wow. Let's talk about some of those places. Where's the first place you had to travel to the photography? And how did you feel when they said, listen, Ruddy, we're sending you here?
The Congo.
Wow.
Brazzaville, in the Congo. I remember reading Hearts of Darkness by Joseph Conrad before I went. And I also, because I do research, you don't tell me to go take a picture of Catherine's Peak water and me not knowing everything about Catherine Peak water before I turn up there. And I also watched 3 documentaries. The last one I'm not going to remember. It was about, it's red rubber, black gold and something, but it spoke to how Leopold found his treasure in the Congo. So when I went to the Congo, I was looking for history. I was looking for racism. I was looking for what the Congolese people went through. What I found was Jamaica. I stayed with he was like a senator. I stayed at his house, and when I went into his backyard, there was every fruit tree that's in my mother's backyard was in his backyard, except for one. And Papa and I, Papa spoke French. Papa did not speak any English. But we would sit down and talk about every fruit tree. We had long 2-hour conversations.
In 2 different languages.
In 2 different languages. And it was there that, he would then go out and bring me back documentaries about Brazzaville. And that was one of the first countries I went to. I remember coming back to the States. I was in New York, I lived in New York at the time. And 2 things happened. Went to a bar with 2 of my closest friends because I was happy. I had gone to the continent. It was the first time, and I felt so like
connected.
Sure.
Yes.
And my bartender, a very dark fellow, seemed disgusted with me. And you feel the energy. So I asked him, brother, what do you? And he was like, did you kiss the girl? No. I like to do it with the accent. Did you kiss the girl when you went to Africa? And I was like, okay. He's kind of thinking that I'm like, I went to his continent, so I said, no brother, it wasn't like that. I didn't go there, I didn't kiss the ground, I said I went there to take in what I had lost. The moment we said that, brother, you slaves, da 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 da. So I said, where are you from? He said, he's from Senegal. I said, what do you speak? He said, French. I said, oh, not Wolof. It was then that he knew where I was going to go with this. You speak the colonizers' language, not yours. Dumb.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that I did not go there to kiss the girl. I went there to find an identity that was taken from me. Yeah. Only then did he realize that me not classy. So.
You come from Jamaica, you're not classy. Miss Duncan said it's a good school.
You see?
Yeah.
Right. So photography became an expression of everything that I grew up with. It is the tool, but with it I have married the writing, which is what made me something of a special. I remember when Instagram actually wrote me and said, maybe say the part of, why you write this long caption on their images? Like it disrupted the whole
idea
because with Instagram, because you're supposed to just
hashtag and
you're supposed to just scroll.
Yeah.
I am trying to hold you to a picture. And so after a while it became a thing. The rest of the industry started to use it as, so it became hashtag Ruddy Roye. This is the way.
Yeah. but tell me about that, Ruddy, because you're very immersive when it comes to your work. The research that you do before shows the value and the respect that you place on the culture of wherever you go. And I think that shows me that you believe in it being the source of photography and not the subject or a disconnect. I'm working and you're the one, but I'm taking the photo of.
Right.
It sounds like a journey that encapsulates self and where it is that I am.
I was told a long time ago to kill ego.
Okay.
Like wake up every morning and that's what you kill. And throughout life, if you're open-minded and if your eyes are open, you'll see why the ego has to be killed. I photographed this really famous photographer. He's considered to be the godfather of photojournalism in Jamaica, in America. I love that I just made that mistake. Robert Frank. I photographed him on the streets of New York, and it took people 4 days to recognize him in my picture. The godfather. That's like saying, I photographed Michael Jackson, and it took people 4 days to recognize him, which told me something. You'll always remember the work. You won't always remember who did the work. And that is the killing of the ego. You put the work out there, people are going to forget you, but they won't forget the work. And so for me, it has always been important to make sure that the work is done. When people ask me what motivates me, why do I continue to do this work? I said because there's a boy and a little girl 100 years old, they're waiting for me to be done. I'm not doing work for now. The work is meaningless now. It's in this quagmire of everybody else's idea of what we should be doing now. Somebody 100 years from now is going to figure out that maybe Ruddy's work is what we should be listening to right now. And so I have to get it done.
Yeah. 100 years from now, representation is also going to be very important. And I find that you are very big on representation, on capturing the image and the authenticity of it and what it means. From all sides of the fence, all aspects. Why representation so important to you?
If you look at my work now, I'll answer this in twofold. If you look at my work now, it looks like me.
Yeah.
It's dark. One of the reasons for that is my curriculum, my son's curriculum, most of our curriculum, I wouldn't say the Caribbean, because the Caribbean does this beautiful balance of involving work somewhere around the Caribbean. Michael Anthony and V.S. Naipaul were some of my favorite literature books, authors. However, being in the States, I mean, I went to the States when I was 20 years old. Most of my college work, I mean, I don't, Robert Frost. Love Robert Frost. One of my favorite philosophers, Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Love Nietzsche. But I got to a point where I'm like, they knew nothing about me. And so I embarked on this space where I would create something that my sons could learn from. I really started at home. I started with, most of the work I was getting was in the Deep South. I would go to the Deep South, I would photograph in the Deep South, and I would come back and talk about the fact that racism still exists. The fact that I'm in a Waffle House, and a white person who was sitting on the stool came outside. This is a glass fence, a glass wall, and he would spit at me from the. Yeah, I mean it's commonplace.
Wow.
And I had to teach my sons that this is what was going on still. And so the etymology of black imagery carries with it hoes, false. Any other stereotypical word that you can fling at the black image. I remember when Time Magazine told me to do a story on the gangster disciples, GDs, and the black disciples in Chicago. I brought back the images, I put them out on the table, and the editor looked at me and she said, Ruddy, we sent you to go do gangsters.
What is it?
Where are the gangsters? I said, I didn't see any, no. I saw some fathers, some brothers, some uncles, that's what I saw. If the gangster had turned up, I would have photographed him, but I didn't see any. The stories ran, but I think she got the point that I was not going to go out there and bring you back any, can we use the N word here?
Well, they understand it.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring back any bigger images. So representation is really important to me.
Yeah.
I remember coming here one year, my mom will tell you how important this story is to me. I brought a friend of mine, we were at Dr. Skate Beach, and some kids that belong to the I am sure it's synonymous to the radios, and they were talking about a beach, we call it Dumper Beach, in Montego Bay, and they said, I remember him saying, them people don't over by Nigger Beach. And I said, by where? And he said, oh, I'm using nigger in the colloquial hip-hop term.
Wow.
And I said, but we're not doing hip-hop in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So for 5 years, when I came to Montego Bay, that's where I went to the beach. And I photographed niggers.
Yeah.
Because I wanted people to see that they're not niggers, they're people, they're families, they're just, the guy actually said, the water is brown when these people come out of the hills. Yes, in Montego Bay. And so for 5 years, and this is what ties back into advocacy. Because for those 5 years, that's the only beach I went to. And if you were visiting me, my mom had to go to, which beach you went to, mommy? All right, she's not going to say the word. But she had to accompany me to that. We went to Advocacy Beach. We went to
That
Dumper
beach.
They call it One Man Beach.
Yeah.
That's the beach we went to.
And I find it a lot in your work because when I look at the images of the jazz players,
Right.
there was so much in the eyes. And I thought jazz was such a powerful music and a powerful time. And even though we reference jazz and what it means, but do we even know the jazz man's story?
No. In fact, when I photographed him, I didn't even know his story.
Yeah.
I mean, like you could feel, like my space is here. I actually closer, based on the lenses I use. I want to be this close. And I remember he was very aloof. You could feel that he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after he left that we found out that his son, who was in the army, did something wrong and was kicked out of the army, and he committed suicide. And you could see it. It was in his eyes.
And I didn't know that. And when I saw that, I said, dude, I could see in his eyes that something was happening.
And that's why I said, this is why I'm here. When I photograph, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Because these do not lie. Like no matter what you try to hide, through a conversation, it comes up.
Yeah. One of the challenges I have with advocacy really is people want to speak for and on behalf of, but not with.
Cannot.
And I find that you do a lot of talking with, not to, but with.
It's a collaboration.
Yes.
And again, the woman, the little lady sitting in the back over there is somebody that taught me little things like you can't do everything. You can't get everything. Some of the things you have to do without.
Yeah.
And I think it was the beginning of how to live in a very humble way. When I walked into I remember photographing 3 presidents from Africa at the UN. And the one that gave me the sweetest conversation is Cape Verde. I'm glad I remember it. Remember the country. Because he loves Blue Mountain coffee.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
That's how we started. The conversation started with Blue Mountain coffee. like Cape Verdeans love coffee. They grow coffee there, but they love Blue Mountain coffee. And it's little things that draws people in.
Yeah.
And this is a president. You know, if he had talked to one little lowly photographer, he could have actually sat down, waited for them to go. Because I remember photographing, what's her name? Fast car, Tracy Chapman.
Okay.
And the manager said, you have 3 minutes. And I had to sit 3 minutes.
Take it and go.
That's it. He was like engaging me. He was like, we were having a proper conversation. So that I could be able to glean from him some level of authenticity. That is not something that the industry does, but if you are genuine, that person can read you and go, I can give this person 15 minutes, 30 minutes.
So we talk about advocacy and our photographers in this project, we're encouraging them to look at their communities, greatness in their communities, to highlight what are some of the things that you think they have to bear in mind, or should bear in mind, before even taking up the camera?
That they're there to amplify a voice, not to give voice to, like I've always tried to change that. Like, I do not give voice to anything. Like I try to amplify using whatever God blessed me with, which is a platform. That it is important not to go in with an eye that seeks to lord over, but more an eye that seeks to understand. People will say that as a journalist, you shouldn't have a point of view. That's a lie. I mean, the moment you click, in that moment, you are actually using your voice. That's your eye, your voice. And so you have to understand which is it. Are you really is that person's language, or are you using your language to speak for that person? So there's a lot of research that has to be done. Before the last assignment I did is a story on the off-the-rate housing projects in Cleveland. And it's about people who don't trust me for one. And so the idea is not to go in there with a camera. I actually walked around the complex for days before I started to photograph anybody. Because I wanted to introduce myself. I wanted people to know why I was there. I wanted people to trust why I was there, because it's very easy to show poverty. It's very easy because people they use poverty to sensationalize an image. Nothing wrong in photographing a homeless person. Nothing is wrong. I mean, I've got to the point now where when people ask me why do I have so many homeless people or people from the street in my images, I said, you know, I struggled with a father who was an alcoholic for a long time. And so when I meet an alcoholic on the street, or when I meet somebody on the street, there's so much that I think that I should have done for my father, that here's an opportunity to do something for somebody. So again, you become an advocate, but you also become a participant in that same struggle. So I believe that the advocate has to learn how to be in that space without being the lord of that space.
You also, I feel, have to be careful that you don't reinforce the very same thing that you're trying not to happen.
Right.
I realized you had a series of photos of young men, and the narratives about them were about the ways in which things like traffic fines, and
fines and fees
were literally standing in the way of them becoming who they wanted to be.
Right.
It literally would have labeled them as almost criminals, because there you have, you know, they can't drive it. But you didn't have an image of them in handcuffs. I mean, you didn't have an image of them in a jail cell. It was just the person that you were able to connect with. How important is that? That point of view that you were just talking about.
Throughout my career, there are very few images that I wish I had taken. I remember there's a guy that was killed by police in Baton Rouge, Alton Sterling. He's other than Trayvon and George Floyd, Alton was also a very big story. And I remember I was around the family a lot. So much so that the aunt said that I was I remember, but I don't remember the word she used, but she was like, "You're a part of our family now." In fact, I was the only person who photographed the family. She was like, "You," or the very photographer that was there at the shrine. He said, "You can come to the house." And I was working for Time at the time. I went and I photographed the son and the baby mom. And I remember when I went to the funeral, his brother was let out of prison, in shackles, in handcuffs, led across the corridor with police, and I couldn't shoot it. I couldn't photograph it. And I remember the story came, the picture was shot by somebody with a big camera, big lens, all the way in the back. And I remember seeing the picture out on, I think Time bought it to accompany the story, and I was like, why didn't you photograph? And just in the same time that I questioned why I didn't, who I am as a person said, you know why you didn't photograph it. That's not how you wanted him to live in a magazine for 100 years. That's not how you wanted him to look like. And so I didn't. And for that same reason is why this woman considered me a member of her family. Oh, got the word. She said, "You are our brother's keeper." That was her word. She said, "You are our brother's keeper." Because there were images that were raw in front of me that I refused to photograph. And she saw that as the matriarch. She was like...
And she could appreciate that. But it's something the chairman said in his open remarks, that the photos can be
Yes.
so powerful.
I heard it.
But they can also be very damaging.
Yes,
And
yes.
so it's important, even in this resolution project, that our photographers bearing that in mind, that what they capture 100 years from now, people don't look at it and say, oh, you know, that community, and so and so
And
on.
especially with Facebook and Instagram building a space called the metaverse.
Yeah.
What the metaverse is I can photograph you and talk about you as this venerable, beautiful playwright, da 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 da, and then somebody takes that same image and go, okay, they like a batik. That same image then goes down to something else, and it goes down, and all of a sudden you are somebody else. You exist as somebody else, way different from how I started it. That's the metaverse, and that's what we have to be careful about, how we put the image out. Because the image, not even 100 years, the image next week could be something completely, and actually be considered more authentic than the first image, based on who is looking at the image. So somebody might pull the image, which is why when you look at all the images, this is why the cancer culture is so big. When you look at all these images of Africans in the diaspora being thrown on the internet without caption, without any idea as to who this person is, where this, it is dangerous, and it can be dangerous.
I wanted to go back to representation because every now and then I'll put, documents together and I'll try to get a stock image. It's one of the hardest things to find positive stock images of black people.
Yes.
I have to tell you.
Yes.
You'll find the angry black people, you'll find violent people, all kind of different things. But when you're looking for women smiling, happy, family photos, they're very rare.
Few and far between.
Yeah. How important is it then for persons such as yourself and photographers coming through this program to claim that, to say we are going to be the generation that will ensure that representation of us is authentic, it is positive, it is who we are?
That was the doorway for me. Like, you didn't have to sell me on what Jamaica National was going to do. As soon as I read the proposal, I was like, this is something that I'd like to get on board with. It's important. I love these stories. Firstborn child, took him to the pediatrician. Pediatrician, we're in Brooklyn. Pediatrician is Jamaican. Pediatrician is black. He goes, why did you choose me? Actually, no. It's even closer than that. Who was the Minister of Health? What was his last name? The one. Just give me the last two. Last name. What's his last name?
Dahlia.
Because it was his son that was my pediatrician.
Oh.
Let's get into the story. So Ferguson.
Yes.
Dr. Ferguson.
Yes.
So his son, so he goes, why did you choose me? I said, really? Like, that's self-explanatory to me, like what he wanted to hear. So I said, first of all, you're black. Second of all, you're Jamaican, like, dude, it's like, he was just like, so. So we say, all right.
You understand, say gas can't on the shoulder blade.
Sure. I know exactly. But I figured that maybe one day I'll be able to find the right answer for him. So he has my child until my child is 4, goes to kindergarten. He has to get his first inoculation. So he get the needle ready and he knows he's going to distract me quickly. So he start off with this conversation. And so he said, Mosiah. Of course, you hear the name. Mosiah. Mosiah is Marcus Garvey's middle name. So you know when you say representative, you know the type of person you're talking to. So Mosiah, what did you do in school today? And Mosiah was telling him, and he said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And Mosiah points at him, and I go, Dr. Ferguson, there's your answer. You are accessible to him. I don't know, big long walk, white people. No, You are a doctor, you're accessible to it. Big smile. He got it. For me, representation, the idea of seeing it, touching it, feeling it, smelling it is important.
It is important.
Of course.
You've worked with the big name magazines already, but I feel like for all of them, you brought your own style. How important is that? Because a lot of creative work sometimes, when I see, particularly how we capture images and film, I feel like sometimes we're going too westernized, like we see it and we say, oh, that's what it's supposed to be. But as Jamaican people, we do our own aesthetic.
You definitely toe a line. Most of the work that I have done, I can't, I mean, many of my friends have said, Ruddy, have your kiss. Right. You have to go do this more, you have to bend down more. Cannot do it. Because I remember how hard it was to see black faces in spaces. Like, even for, I mean, there are very few black photographers that worked for Nat Geo when I got there. Like, they could count them. There's a vast difference from when I got there and who's there now. And though nobody would say, well, Ruddy, pioneer, we don't need it. Don't need it. What I would say though is the work that I did at Nat Geo is why the whole is, because I made sure that you're not gonna get the whitewashed version of the story that I just did. And I worked on the race issue, and I worked on the opening of the new African American Museum. And for me, thank God again for that. I think it was in both of them. My father always said, if you have a sweet street, sweet with the best. Because when the queen come on, I'm over here. Guess who they go call? And so, even though I had done the assignment, when they told me to go, they allowed me to look at the work and photograph my experience, which the magazine and the museum used as an extra story. For me, representation is not just the job they give you. It is a lifestyle. Like, you continue it. You make sure that the work is done. You make sure that nobody can go behind you and find nothing else to do. Which is why, for me, there is no competition.
Yeah.
I don't go. Another story. Dude came and asked me for work. Like, no. I remember the editor asked me to go photograph something, and I said, give it to Gareth. And Gareth was like, why? Like, I said, Gareth, because you have been working on it for 3 weeks. They're giving it to me because my name, I mean Ruddy Roye, but you have been, and he walked away not understanding that for me, stopping him from doing the work is not the goal. I know that I can do the work the way I do. So if at the time his work is better than mine, guess who should eat? He should eat. All we can eat.
Yeah.
That's not the competition for me is to make sure that my work is better than his.
Yeah. Is that something our photographers coming into this should bear in mind? That I'm in this resolution project, not because I want to be in a competition with JN Foundation, but I'm coming in there and I'm stamping my name, I'm doing my work. I'm going for what is my aesthetic.
That is what is most important.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ways of being somebody on a global stage is being able to have somebody say, that's a Ruddy Roye's image. I mean, no matter, you'd be surprised how many people be a part of a group show, and they'll go, I walk into the room and I can just tell what your image is. That to me, your signature is most important. I am not better than Robert Frank by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not better than Gordon Parks. Give me another person that I really like. Can't remember his name now. But I do believe that I bring to photography something that Gordon didn't bring, something that Robert didn't bring. I bring with me a Jamaican aesthetic, which I love, And I know that there are other Jamaican photographers that I have met that are brilliant.
Yeah.
There's this guy, I don't know his name, but he shoots, he photographs these portraits, beautiful portraits of couples out in the fields. Love them, brilliant. That's not my work. I remember a long time ago my mom said, know thyself. It has stayed
And
with
to thyself be true.
There you go. It has stayed with me. I know what my lane is. I can admire Garrett's work and not feel like I feel envy Garrett. Not necessary. I support if Garrett said, call me anytime I say, Ruddy, what do you think about this? Garrett is going to get Ruddy. This is how I feel. I see where you're going, but da 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 da. I have no problem sharing. This is why. This is why this initiative was something that I was really excited to be a part of.
Excellent. So recommendation. I could talk to Ruddy all day and for the next time. So we want to develop photo advocacy in Jamaica. What are your thoughts on that and your recommendations?
Wondering why it took so long. I used to come here and I would ask every photographer that I met on the street, at an event, where is your body of work? I think that is something that is going to come out of this. People are going to develop bodies of work. The idea that you tell a story, whether you tell a story with one image or you tell a story with a group of images, that this is going to be something that anthropologists, sociologists, professors in whatever discipline, at UA, wherever, will be able to use as source material for anything that they're doing in their classrooms.
Points of reference.
For years to come, the fact that we do not have bodies of work of beautiful imagery of black folk across the diaspora. Imagine the same way that reggae has been able to be exported. I mean, when I was in the Congo, I went to the club. This is why I know that Vibes Cartel did not have any idea his power. They played 2 reggae artists. Other than Bob, they played Busy Signal, or 2 Tune, and then they rinse about 40 vibes. I don't think people understand how far Congo is. The Congo is the birthplace of music. That means you walk down Oxford Road, you hear music from DR. You walk a little further down Belmont, you hear Haitian music. It has everybody's music there. Sorry. And there you are listening to Vibes Cartel. How did Vibes get to the Congo? I think because of what reggae is, this idea that it is a movement. It is not just song, it is a movement. When you listen to it, people react to it. I believe that out of this JN initiative, people will be able to develop a voice that can be a movement, that can show imagery in a way that sparks movement. It doesn't have to be a revolution. It just, people go, you know what, that's not right. We can change that. We should move that. And it also does not take government to move it. A community initiative. If the community, let's say Garrett does an initiative in this area and he involved the kids, parents all of a sudden go, you know what, that is important too. Maybe we need to like push back on that, move that. That's what photography does. And advocacy does not have to just be, what was that big, something spring, Arab Spring. It doesn't have to be a protest. It could actually be a community sitting down and going, you know, we saw these images that somebody put up on a wall, and they move us in such a way that you can get some ball drum or a netball court for these kids, because the images show that nothing wrong to them. Yeah. So that is what I hope will be birthed from the initiative.
Excellent. As I said, we will talk all day, but I know we have a few questions, and we have to field them. I watched the interview with Ruddy, and I said to him, Ruddy, When you went into the technical things and the camera, I was totally lost. And the lights and all the things. So here comes Norman Baker says, what's your advice to amateur photographers who are not so sure of how to start?
Wait.
That's your question as well. Yeah.
I think, easy. All right. YouTube.
University of YouTube.
I mean, start.
Yeah.
That's a start.
YouTube.
You go up and you type in, how do I take a portrait? I'm sure YouTube is going to ask you what kind of portrait, indoor, outdoor, editorial or commercial. And if you're true to the journey or the path, you find yourself. Maybe you learn that. I mean, I've taken a portrait with every lens. I've taken a portrait with a 21mm lens to a 85 or a 135. Depends on what I had at the time. But it depends on what I wanted to say with the lens. The lens for me is my eye. So amateur photography, I would say the biggest word, it's like, for me, this is like giving away like the alchemy. Reciprocity. If you know what reciprocity is in photography, the doors of photography, that's like the biggest key.
Yeah.
So you can, whoever asks that question,
No, man.
look up what
Reciprocity.
reciprocity is, and that is it.
All right, we have a question on the floor. Yes, we do. Garrett.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can everybody see Garrett?
No, it's okay. It's not about me. It's about JN. Question: how important is it for a young photographer, somebody who wants to start to understudy somebody or to find a mentor, to just guide them before they jump out there and say they have a photography services
Or that they're a photographer?
or they're a photographer?
I'm a big advocate for the apprenticeship system. If this was my world, everybody would understudy with a mentor. They would have a mentor. I believe that I'm here because of a group in America called Komongi. It was a group of black photographers. And the lessons were not just technical, it was a way to be. They were the ones who said to me, the aesthetic should have dignity in it. The aesthetic should not be like this. Because we're not all poetry. And so, my 2 years at Vogue, where everybody had this, I learned how, no matter if you carry cans on the street, literally, even if you have the bag over your shoulder, I'm going to give you this with the bag over your shoulder. And that's what I did with photography. Like, you're going to have dignity. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. And so, I learned that through the Jumping the Hues, all the guys who I understudied in America. And I would be a huge advocate for finding an understudy here as a way to walk up the pathway.
Excellent. We have so many questions online. What is your opinion on building your skills as well as a page to show your work?
I think it's important. It's like, why do you take pictures? You take pictures to show them.
Yeah.
The question is why. Why are you showing them? Are you showing them because you think that they're beautiful? Or are you showing them because you want feedback? I think the why came from Professor Dr. Deborah Willis in New York. She saw my dancehall work one time, and she asked me why. And I remember there was a picture in it where there was a guy with a camera, looking up under a woman's skirt. She asked me, why? Why are you showing it? What's the reason for showing it? Is showing it a better way to tell the story than just not showing it? And so why has been a huge part of why I do anything in photography. Why do you have a page? What is your reason for putting up this page? What's the first part of the question?
It was about the page. Yeah, I think the page is the most important, and building the skills.
For me, just having an eye for photography is not enough. I have different lenses that I use. I use a 24 to an 85 normally, and they all have different reasons. Like most of the blues guys I photographed were shot with a 80mm lens. I also have a little secret sauce that I don't tell anybody. I think Gareth knows what my secret sauce is. But you know, if you consider yourself a OG, for lack of a better word, you have to have a secret sauce.
Yeah.
So you give your students, you give them everything, but they always wonder why your thing look little different. Your secret sauce, and then you just before you die, you call one of them in, and you just like.
Here are the 11 herbs and spices.
Give them the secret sauce. They give them the secret sauce. But it's important to know how. Like, I've learned street photography. Let me show you something. So, in street photography, I usually look for what the image is. For me, the decor is a part of the story. I use the word customer. And I will see something happening here. Maybe it's a guy that's selling peanuts or something on the street, and I see the word customer, but there's no customer there. So now I'm sitting here for an hour waiting for a customer to come in. Right, that's why I shoot street. However, the lens that you're going to use is important. You have to have customer, you have to have this person. You can't put an 85 here. So knowing your equipment is key. So as I wait for the customer, I already know what my focus point is. And
Excellent. Got another question from David. What is the editing process like for you? Do you try to keep your photos as natural as possible?
As natural as possible. And I think it's because I've worked in the magazine world where somebody like National Geographic asks you for everything. So they will actually say to you, do not erase an image. Because they want to see your progression. They want to be able to know that you didn't pose somebody. If they say you're shooting reportage, and all of a sudden you have this reportage, then you go, and then you have somebody go, then they know that you actually pose that person. So somebody like Nat Geo wants to see the whole process. They also want to see what the color, because if you go up and shoot 3,000 images, you're not going to tone 3,000 images. But you'll give them, in the edit, a really beautifully toned image. They're like,
really?
Them color the name did it. So but that's editorial. In the world of commercial, where everything has to be the most beautiful, which that's not the word that I've been privy to. Right. I mean, it's allowed. I mean, I just don't do it.
I guess you should know what it is that you're trying to represent.
Right.
And for you, what does that mean? It's going to look like you painted it or you took a picture.
There you go. Vogue got into trouble a lot for...
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. All right, it says, Xavier says, what has been that one assignment or body of work that has been your most difficult, and how did you overcome that challenge?
This last one, the folks at Off-Weight, is the most challenging, because after, I would say, let's just say 12 years of photographing poverty or protest, or you kind of feel like, maybe I should represent black folk. Maybe I should go seek out stories that I'd be from. And when I went to Othwaite is one of the first housing projects in Cleveland. From it came a congressman, and so it had the potential. But now it's one of the deadliest. And so I went in there looking for a beautiful child, the next congressman. But every time I walk onto the property, somebody look at me and say, "We are here. This is the worst place you could ever come. There's nothing good here." Like 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 13-year-olds telling me this. You cannot come here without a gun. You know, tell them something I have one. But those are things that I knew going in. Like, I would be taping and you hear the gunshots. And then you hear the ambulance. And I'm like, I'm here looking for
something,
the gem. And then I said, okay, since you just press pause, and he said, what I'm going to do is to photograph. So I started to ask people, what makes Othwaite so hard to live in? And as they showed me, I photographed them, hoping that I'll find it. I don't give up on the nugget. I just say, okay, let they be my guide. And
the nugget might appear.
There you go.
Yeah. What is your advice to approaching persons to take their picture? How do you get them to agree?
That's one of the biggest skill any photographer will have to learn. Depend. I mean, there are people who prefer to photograph from, they use a zoom lens and they photograph, or they do the 3 feet. The 3 feet is hard because people are like, well, you let me feel so.
Yeah. And then they become unnatural because they become conscious of it.
The beauty of that is if you allow somebody to buy into what you're actually saying. It's like trying to convince somebody that they should start wearing leopard. And they say, boy, the material feel good, sir. And I say to them, you know, is it actually cool? Like the wind blow through it. And, you know, me feel like, you know, me element, me African element. Stuff like that. Somebody might say, oh, I feel like me African element too.
Right.
It's the same thing, it's the same skill. Like you want somebody to feel like they're part of your project. And if you make somebody feel like they're endorsing it, or like it's a collaboration, chances are
it will work.
It will work.
What are your views on flash versus natural light in your line of work?
Every time I hear this question, I know that the person who's asking is somebody who's intimidated by flash because they haven't used flash a lot. But when I learned how to use flash, it became an asset. Like the best picture is to make it look natural, where you pump flash in it through our line. There you go. It's as soon as you learn how to use flash, it becomes an appendage, because you need to open up shadows. You need to embellish or craft an image. But it's the knowing. Like if you don't know how to turn it down, how to dial it down, then the blast make you go, Lord, oh, this may one. And the window or the doorway light is flattering. But if you just pump a little bit into it, it enhances the image.
Wow. Well, you know, listening to me, you want to run out and be a photographer. Someone said advocacy. Oh, we have to go. All right, Ruddy.
Already?
Yes. No, but Ruddy, thank you so much. It was such a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
It was an honor.
And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And for those who joined us online, I really think we're going to get some great images out of this. Just by this thing. And by the way, yes, you see, I'm so caught up in it, I forget the instructions. Should you want to replay this riveting, thank you for saying that, this riveting discussion, or share it with friends and colleagues, please visit www.jnfoundation.com or visit the JN Foundation's YouTube page. and you'll be able to share it. I know some of you right now saying to somebody, but I tell you, see, you should have watched it tonight, it was so good. So now you can share that with them and be a part. Roddy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And Jane, thank you. And Dahlia, always a pleasure being here, everyone. Have a great day.